It was yellow. Yeah.
Okay, we're starting the garden talk. We're only going to be over here for just a minute, and then we're going to move over to the garden so that I can answer your questions about how we grow our plants and how to get your soil prepared and all that kind of fun stuff. So this would be a good time if you have questions about like pests or problems you're having with your plants specifically. I can answer them now, and if not, then we can make our way over there. Shall we? Okay, well, you guys are easy.
I don't know anything, so I don't have any questions to ask yet.
Okay. Well, you're allowed to ask questions once we move over there. And we're going to be going to the very far corner where we're going to have our plants are going to be planted this season for rotation. So if you want to head over there, we'll head over there. Drives me crazy.
Go.
Okay. So our soil, we talk about this all the time. Our soil on this property is sand, 100% sand. And so we are constantly trying to amend this soil in order to be able to grow stuff. And we're proving that you can actually change the composition of your soil, but it takes a lot of organic matter, a lot. There was a study at Chico State where they were saying for sandy soil like ours, it was about 300 pounds of organic matter per 100 feet. Yeah, so that is a lot. So if you look behind you, you will see those two beds that have the stacked up manure in them. That manure has been down now for 1 year. When we stacked it, that was just aged manure, not compost. And we stacked it this high.
Wow.
When we put this bed in 4 years ago, we did that. So this is the very first time we're planting anything in this bed, and we did not till anything, we did not prep anything. We just literally put about 3 feet of organic matter, which is mostly horse manure, aged horse manure, with straw and some chicken manure and everything that goes in that big manure pile out there, and just piled it up here really high and let it sit for 3 years. And so this is the great mechanisms that God has created for the earth, that the earth will actually feed itself if you don't interfere. And I have fought myself to get past this idea of I've got to till it and make it look so pretty, because you kill all the good stuff when you till. So we are now 100% no-till in this garden, and 100% organic. So this soil, we just dug this out. This is actually the sandy soil that's just, you know, probably a foot down. And you can see how sandy it is. Yesterday we had torrential downpours without hail, thank you Jesus. But all of our driveways were underwater. By the time the rain ended, like the whole thing was underwater. And then we have people saying, well, what about the mud? Like, we don't have mud. Even when we have standing water, we don't have mud. But by this morning, all the puddles were gone. And that's very typical of the amount of water that goes through here. We're great at recharging the aquifers, but we also use have to use a whole lot of water until we can get this soil healthy in order to keep plants growing. So, to bring up the point of, let me find it here, got to get past all the straw mulch. So you can start to see that is the breaking down of all the compost, and it's changing the composition of this soil. And so putting this in this year, this is the setup for it. Anyone know what those are?
Gopher berries.
Yes. And
I never thought of that.
I don't get kickbacks from this company, but I really should, because I talk about them all the time. This is a company in California. We've got a company in California called Digger's Gopher Guard. They make these. They are not chicken wire. They are triple galvanized wire, so they do not rust. Many of these cages I have are over 10 years old. Some of them are probably pushing 20 years old. And they don't break down as long as you don't dig your shovel into them when you're digging them up at the end of the season. So you can see I have the hole dug, the Gopher Guard in, and it's got to be above ground about 1 inch. When these guards are new. The top of them are painted green to show you how far up you should have it above the ground, but then it wears out. We'll see how wet my compost is because I put it in the wheelbarrow before the storm last night. But this is our finished compost from our O2 compost pile, which O2 is forced air. And thanks to Jane and Glenn giving us that little system, we can make compost from raw material in 30 days. So if you look at our compost piles over there, we have the little forced air system, and then we have a big vermicompost, which is worms. That's why we sell the worms, to get you going in your compost, because worms also break things down really fast. The benefit of the forced air system is that it also heats the compost up so hot that it kills weed seeds, fly larvae, and disease. So if you have thrown something into your compost pile that like has a wilt or a blight or something like that, the forced air system will kill those things where the worms will not. But with the forced air system, you don't get worm castings like you do with the vermicompost system. And with the worms, we don't have to turn anything. Well, with both of them, we don't have to turn anything. So this compost just gets thrown in there, and then when it's ready, we start pulling it out. So what I'm gonna do, because it is fully done composting, I can use a ton of it. When compost is really done, it smells like dirt. If it smells like manure or ammonia, it is not done cooking. And I get on my high horse more and more as people come to me. City compost is the worst compost you could possibly use, and there is a reason they're giving it away for free. So you will have tons of microplastics in your city compost, and you will have all kinds of chemicals from things that are being thrown in there, because it's all the stuff that the city is collecting from homeowners. And so there's just tons of trash in it. And because they need it to make things turn green so that people think it's good and they'll keep taking it, they add ammonia to it, ammonium sulfate, which turns everything green really fast, and then everything dies. So please don't use city compost. And if you need compost and you're not making your own, we'll do a plug for Triple H Youth Ranch in Ripon. They have their big forced air system now, and they're selling their compost. And it's going to be just basically from the stuff we have. It's horse manure, chicken manure, they have some ducks, you know, so they're throwing all of that into their forced air system along with hay and straw and things like that, so, and shavings. So when you get to this point and you've got this beautiful compost, I want to put it in here just a little bit, and you can see my tomato plants are ridiculously huge because I have not had any time to plant. And so these guys are going to be really pot bound. Maddie, out, out. Thank you.
So I'm helping, Mom.
If you're digging, then there might be a gopher.
Maybe there's a gopher, that's right.
And you're at bird level.
Yes, exactly. So I'm a big fan of these. These are fertilizer spikes that are organic. I have a bunch of empty packages if you want one. And then I talked about this at the last sale. This is the crab and oyster shells that are ground up, and we just do a couple tablespoons of them thrown in there. And the reason we use this is, yes, it does add calcium to the soil, which we don't care because we have a lot of calcium in our soil, but it has something called chitin in it that will kill and deter root knot nematodes. And root knot nematodes live in sand and they love tomato plants. And so they are very hard to kill. This is more experimental, but all I know is we had a lot of root knot nematodes here when we moved here because they also like almond trees, and this was an almond orchard. And so the first 3 years that we were planting in the soil, our tomato plants were riddled with root knot nematodes. And now we have, for the last 4 years, we have not seen any root knot nematode damage since we started using this. So really, and it's cheap, so it's like, why not? It's certainly not going to hurt anything. So I have my tag. I have my plant. Now tomatoes, you can see how root bound he is. He's like, please let me in the ground. They will sprout roots along their entire stem. And so the deeper you plant them, the happier they are. You just want to remove any foliage off of your plant that's going to go under the ground, okay? So like I'm looking at this guy and I'm like, yeah, I'm above the ground, so I'm pretty okay. But if I don't mess up his root ball, he's just going to keep spinning in circles even after I plant him. It's just like a goldfish that lived in a bowl and then you put him in a big tank and he'll still keep circling in a circle. The roots will just keep circling around and will not expand out. So we're gonna mess him up really good so that he doesn't keep going around in circles. Now this is the front for us, so I'm gonna stick him with a stick in the back. I want it to go a little bit deeper. That's pretty good there. And then I'm gonna add some soil back. There. And just pack this puppy in here. And a little bit more compost. You could grow these guys in pure compost if the compost is fully done, and they would still grow. So, and grow really healthy. So you don't have to worry about burning your plants. One thing I did forget was my watering can. So I'm gonna have a hard time watering this guy in.
Hold on.
It's in the greenhouse. Yep. Thank you. Okay. So when I get right about here, getting close to the top, these spikes are 8 spikes for a tomato, 6 spikes for a pepper. And they will feed them. With us, if we're gonna go back and do more, we do them usually around August, if I have time. But usually the compost will keep feeding them. So I just take these spikes and I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Then I'm going to take one of these big bamboo sticks, run it where the smaller one is, down to here. And this is where I get, this is after years of doing this, scissors in my back pocket. Now you could use pretty much anything. You could use nylons. You just want something that, or a piece of old t-shirt to tie your plants up. When you look at, you see how like we've got this guy tied, and when you buy plants in there, we have some stapled and some tied. The ones that are tied, you have to take the tie off. The ones that are stapled, the plant will pull the staple apart as it grows if you forget to take it off. But we still need support. If I had stuck these guys in a timely manner, they would have gotten that storm yesterday. And so we do need to have some protection for them. But the way this, because this is really heavy tape, dollar store clothespins will hold it in place. And then I make sure I take my tie off so that it doesn't choke it, because it's really easy to forget you had that thing on there. And these plants get so big you won't see it after about a month. So it's really easy to forget it. What I do with my tags is I stick them in the front upside down so that they don't bleach out. And then I know exactly where they are if I need to look them up and figure out what it is that I'm growing. But we do end up putting signs up too. So I don't know what, oh, there they are. So here's a really important one. A lot of the blights and diseases, fungal diseases that that will affect your tomato plants and your peppers are soil borne, and they're just naturally in the soil. You're not going to get rid of them. the way you keep them from attacking your plants is to remove the growth that's near the soil. So we're gonna take off up to about 18 inches, and like for now I will stop here, but then I will come back and take it off higher when the plant gets up higher, because I still want the plant to be taking in sunlight, and it'll help it establish better. And so as long as it's not touching the ground, I'm safe there. And then one of the things that I'm always telling people is do not get your tomato plants wet, because that will spread the diseases. And places that have high humidity have a lot of problems with fungal diseases and blights in tomatoes that we don't have because we're arid. But when you start getting your plants wet, you just raise the humidity and you're giving the plant a chance to spread that disease. So I'm gonna just water this guy in. And then I'm gonna build up my well, even though this is gonna be drip. After today, or as I'm planting, I will water it in a couple of times with the hose or the watering can, and then after that the drip is going to take care of it, and the drip will just go here, and it gets, I don't know where it went. I had a staple and I moved it, but I just staple these in to hold that there. Okay, where?
Next to the hose. Gray hose.
Ah, thank you.
Sure. I have
So
the same
yeah,
problem.
I will put the staples in there to hold them up against there. And then our drips are 2 gallon per hour drips. There is not a formula for everybody because it's going to depend on what kind of soil you have. So we're doing 2 gallons per hour every other day for 45 minutes to an hour every day. That's a lot of water. If you were in clay, your plants would just be drowning. But for us, that's what is required to keep them healthy. So we'll go down this entire line and plant the plants exactly like this. And even though we're not going to use this stake as a support for the whole season, we're going to leave it there just because it's going to get swallowed and it doesn't need to be removed until the end of the season. And so the way that we do, and when you try to explain this without showing it, it's really hard for people to understand. We do what's called field twine, or tomato twine, and it comes in a box like this. This is how farmers who are growing eating tomatoes, not canning tomatoes, they're indeterminate, meaning that they're setting fruit all season long. So they get really tall, like most of our plants are indeterminate. So they have to grow them on a trellising system so that they don't touch the ground, so that they don't get diseases. So they use what's called field twine. And they come in these boxes like this, and they make them with great little slits in them so that when you are working out in the field, you can put a belt on them. This is actually a strap from a bag, but it works for me. And I'm gonna end up cutting this. I won't leave it like this because I don't put the first row on until I've got all the plants in the first row, but just so that I can show you, let's pretend that the plants are already up to here. So I will start down here and I'll keep adding rows until I get all the way to the top. But we're gonna pretend that they're already up here so that I can stand up while I'm showing how I do this. So I wrap it twice at the end and tie it in a knot. And then I go down to the next one and I will line it up so that it's about the same height, and I'll wrap it, pull it a little snug, and I'll wrap it again. And every third one you wrap it twice, and that just helps hold it in place. So let's pretend that I go all the way down doing this, and then I'm gonna come back. Go around like this, and now that plant that's up against here, I'm gonna squish him. And he just goes to here. Sorry about the camera. Wrap him, pull it a little snug, bring it around. Wrap him. And then when I get to the end of a row, I pull it around twice again. Grab my scissors, which are usually, I have them shoved in the hole right there. And then you just cut it and tie it off. And so we work all the way up. If you come to the tomato tasting, you'll be able to see by the August tomato tasting, the plants are way up here. And you'll see the twine going all the way up. So that's gonna hold them. Tie that tight enough, and I already put a knot in it, but it's gonna hold them for the whole season. And then the great thing is that at the end of the season, when your plants are done and it's time to remove them, you just take your scissors and go up the T-posts and cut it. All the plants fall over. You just go through with your loppers and cut the base and throw them all away. So it's a very smart system. I'd like to say I thought of it. I didn't. But this is how the farmers do it out in their fields. And the only difference that with them, the way they do it and the way I do it, is that they are, you know, doing acres upon acres. They put the twine through a PVC pipe, and then they can just go through from far away and wrap them, especially as the plants get bigger and they can't get as close. I just have to wiggle myself in to get to the T-posts. But makes a whole lot of sense. And this twine is quickly biodegradable. By the end of the season, like, we'll find pieces of this where we've cut it and it didn't get thrown in the trash. If you pick it up and go like this, it'll just break. So after one season, it's already crumbling. And it's super cheap. We get these from Drip Depot or Johnny's Seeds. And I think it's like 20 bucks for a box, and there's 1,000 feet of twine in there. So it lasts me a couple of seasons for as much as I'm doing. But they'll either list it as tomato twine or rain twine, or field twine. Okay, so that's basically how we grow them and how we take them out. And with the peppers, we use these tomato cages for our peppers. If you have the little cages that go down in a cone, they're ridiculous. They don't hold up anything. And so if you have very small peppers, or like micro tomatoes maybe, but if you get wind, they'll just like bend over. These are just concrete mesh. We used to grow all of our tomatoes in those tomato cages at the old property. Because of the way it was set up, we couldn't do the rows like we do here. And this is just so much easier. They work great. It's just, they're hard to get to the tomatoes in the middle. It's hard to get airflow through them because they're not growing flat. And then cleaning up at the end of the season, they've gone through all the holes and you've got to rip them out and all that kind of stuff. So, but they do work good in a smaller situation. The other thing that these are good for is, and if I had put these plants in and then we had gotten the storm, and with all that hail we were supposed to get, if you have a cage on there, and we sell the frost fabric over there, you can put the frost fabric over the top of the cage and the hail can't shred your plants. And so we have been out here before with our frost fabric, grabbing tomato cages and shoving them as the storm was moving in to protect the plants so that they don't get shredded. But that's about it for this. Any questions?
I have questions.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna have like 2 plants.
Yeah.
If I use cages, what do? Do you tie them to the cage, or do you just let them grow in there?
You just let them grow in there.
Okay.
If they're on a stake, that will keep them from leaning against the cage at the beginning.
Okay.
And then by the time they go up over the top of the cage, then, you know, they're established enough that they're pushing against the sides of the cage and they're not going to fall over and break.
Now, do you trim them or clip them or
I
pinch 'em?
don't.
Can you? What
You
happens
can.
if you do?
You can. So, and a lot of people do. So you'll notice with tomato plants, they grow a leaf, then they grow a sucker out of the margin of the leaf from the main stem. And if you have very small gardening area and you want to contain your plants, people remove the suckers.
Okay.
Now the suckers produce fruit.
Okay.
So you're not going to get the volume of fruit that you are going to get, but if you are really diligent about removing your suckers, you can put your plants a lot closer together. So we set them 3 feet apart, and they need to have at least 3 feet in each direction if you're not going to keep them pruned.
Got it.
And that's mostly for airflow and being able to fit, like if you're wanting to fit more plants into a small area. And you're going to have to be really diligent about removing your suckers, because then this sucker will throw suckers.
Okay.
So that's how the plant gets so big and huge and bushy, is that the suckers are just coming up throughout the whole entire plant. And if you look at like commercial greenhouses that grow tomatoes, like hothouse tomatoes, and they'll grow them on the field twine, but they grow it where they hook the twine to a system at the roof, and the twine comes down like this, and they hook the tomato to the twine up, and then they remove all the suckers. So you just have this main stem, and then it'll start setting fruit down it, and they can put them like a foot apart from each other, because it's just literally a stick with leaves coming out and fruit setting on it. It's a completely different way of growing, but you have to be really diligent about keeping the suckers off, because once you've started it that way, there's not room for the suckers to spread out and keep your plants healthy. Other questions?
I plant all mine in 5-gallon buckets.
Yes.
Because I do have gophers.
Yes.
I have way too much yard for me.
Uh-huh.
So if I was, since I'm in a 5-gallon bucket, would I put 8 of those little fertilizer things in a
Yes.
5-gallon bucket also?
Yes.
Okay.
And now Job's does make a chemical spike, a chemical fertilizer spike. You would want to be more careful with those, because the chemical fertilizers can burn the plants, but they are slow release. It's just that it's, when you're in a bucket, you're more concentrated. But with the organic spikes, they're not going to burn the plants.
Right.
So the worst is that if you were using too many, you would waste money. But it's not. It's not going to hurt the plant any. No. So just with the chemical spike, because I have not used it before, they probably have a list of how many to use in containers.
Of course.
That would be different. And that would just be really the only difference with them, but they still work great. The biggest things with containers is that you're having to water more, so you're leaching your fertilizer out faster.
Right.
So you may have to replenish them sooner than we do in the soil. The other thing is that in containers, the soil is heating up faster than it would be in the ground. And so your plants are more stressed, and any diseases will have a better chance of getting a foothold in a container because they're more stressed. So just keep an eye out. Like if you see like this leaf right here, I'm glad this has this leaf on here. If you had a leaf like that and you didn't know what it was, it would be better off to cut it off. That's actually sun scald. So it's harmless, but anything that has looks like any kind of disease, it's better to cut that off so that it doesn't keep spreading up the plant. And then if you're seeing that something is spreading, you can always spray it with copper that you buy that at the nursery. It's a liquid copper. We use liquid cop, and it's very concentrated. So if you only have a couple plants, you're not going to go through a whole lot of it. But you can spray that, and it's a general fungicide, but it's also organic. So it's something that you can spray all the time. You can also use a 5% milk, whole milk, to 95% water, and the enzymes in milk will also kill fungal spores.
That's nice.
Yeah. So because we're using copper on so many things, we use it on the fruit trees for peach leaf curl, and on the grapes for
roses with the rust.
yes, yeah, and powdery mildew, any of that kind of stuff. Copper, you can use sulfur, but it stinks.
Yeah.
You know, it's like sulfur stinks, but copper stains. So, you know, you don't want to spray copper against your house because you'll have a blue house for years and years. But other than that, it's really safe to use, and you can, you know, get it on you and it doesn't hurt you or anything.
Another tip that I found out about, because I am in a container, I put a Tums, and the bottom when I plant the tomato plant.
Yeah,
it
so
helps, whatever, sunspots or rot or
no,
whatever.
it's a blossom end rot, and people hate me saying this, but it doesn't help. And
Yeah, well, in my mind,
yeah,
it
I
did.
know, and it's like eggshells. People will say, you know, to grind up eggshells
calcium.
and
You're
put them
trying
in.
to give it calcium.
You're trying to give it calcium, because that's blossom end rot is caused by calcium deficiency, but it doesn't mean that there isn't calcium in the soil. We get blossom end rot and we have very high calcium.
How about
It's
that?
more of a watering issue, and you have to think of like the molecule of calcium is very large, and for the plant to take that calcium up in the roots always have to stay hydrated. So if you let the plant dry out, the roots shrink, then even when you water, they don't fully expand again, and you'll have these systems where they're not taking up calcium. They can take up other nutrients, but they can't take up calcium. And then when you have plants that are susceptible to blossom end rot, that's when you'll get the blossom end rot on there. The best way to get calcium to a plant that you're literally struggling with blossom end rot at that time is to get liquid calcium. And then fix your watering problem.
So just make sure you water consistently.
And it's
Consistent.
yeah,
Routinely.
Exactly.
Don't miss the
Yeah,
routine.
and you can have the same problem with letting your plants get too wet. Like if they're sitting in water, it starts to rot, won't take up calcium. So it's not just dry; it can also be too wet. And the only way to like make sure that the blossom end rot isn't being caused by the fact that you don't have calcium in your soil is to have your soil tested. But the Tums would take about 10 years to break down the calcium enough for it to actually help your plants. Same way with eggshells.
Well, I'm not going to give that advice out anymore.
So, and that's why I was saying, like, this has got some great calcium in it, but that's not why we're using it, because it would still take years for it to break down enough to actually help the plants. So the liquid calcium is a good quick fix. There is a product called Blossom Stop that is a calcium based spray that you spray on the plants, and they will systemically take it in, and that will also help if it's a calcium problem and not a watering problem for blossom end rot. So, you know, getting the calcium in there is, you can check the box off and say the calcium's there, now why is the plant not taking it up?
I've never had the problem, but
yeah, it's one of those old I don't want to say wives' tales. It's like, it's just someone said, oh, calcium, Tums is calcium, I'll use that, you know. And it's like, yeah, but that's not really going to help.
well,
So
that was cool.
a lot of people, I hear it all the time, that and eggshells. I'm like, the eggshells will keep the snails if you put them on the surface, and so will this keep the snails and slugs from getting to plants, because they don't like to crawl over the sharp stuff. And it lasts longer than diatomaceous earth, which does the same thing, but as soon as diatomaceous earth gets wet, then it doesn't stop them anymore. Where with the eggshells and the oyster or the crab shells, they stay sharp after they've gotten wet, so then they don't want to crawl across it. But other than that, like, you know, it's not going to hurt to put it in there, but it's not going to help for this season or next season or the season after that or the season after that as far as calcium. So
And where did you get the Neptune?
I ordered it from Amazon. I see it at nurseries that they carry it, but it was about the same price ordering it at Amazon, and I got it the next day.
You didn't have to
Amazon.
drive.
Yeah, exactly. So and it lasts a long time because it really doesn't take that much. You know, it's about a tablespoon to 2 tablespoons for root knot nematodes. You could dump the whole bag in there and it's not going to hurt anything. It's just, again, you're wasting money if you're using too much of it. So, yeah. Any other questions?
When do you put your shade cloth up? And if you have a container, would it be wise to make a tent?
Yes.
Coming off?
So, and Jane knows our shade cloth. So tomatoes, we think of them as being hot weather plants. They actually don't like the extreme heat that we have. They are happiest between 85 and 95 degrees. When we get up above 95 degrees, they start to stress. And the way that they save themselves is to drop their blossoms. And so, like, this little guy has these blossoms on here. I just took him out of the greenhouse. He went from a nice, perfect little temperature that's always being adjusted. So he hasn't actually been hardened off like most of our plants have. And again, that's my fault. But what's going to happen with him is, because we're getting ready to go into the 40s, chances are those blossoms will fall off. So it's just because I'm doing an extreme temperature, so it can do from extremes to just being too hot. And then the plants are just trying to save themselves for later, to produce later. So the first thing they do is drop their blossoms. So because we are pretty much guaranteed triple digits in the Central Valley, we use shade cloth. And it's a really hick way that we came up with doing it, is that we have 1-inch PVC tees that we put on the tops of our T-posts. And then we have 1/2-inch PVC, which is the same stuff that we've got making the hoops in those beds over there. We have lengths of them. They're currently on the citrus trees because we use them to put mattress covers on the citrus when it freezes. And there are clips that are made just for 1/2-inch PVC for your garden. And so we pull them off of there. They're actually sitting on rebar that's stuck in the ground. Pull them off of there, slide them into the T-posts. We run our shade cloth over the top, and then we use the garden clips to hold them on. But you want them to be above your plant. You don't want them sitting on your plant. If you have, our shade cloth is black. If I had it sitting and touching the plant when it was young, and then it's hot, it's gonna burn the plant. Now by the end of the season, some of these varieties have already pushed their way through the shade cloth and are growing up over the top of it, but you know, and we'll see like burn spots on them if we're getting up to 110 degrees. But it will lower your temperature on your plants 10 to 15 degrees, which is enough. If we're up at 110, it's enough to keep our blossoms from falling off. 2 years ago, July 1st, I will never forget, because we were at a wedding, an outdoor wedding. It was 113 degrees. And we had our shade cloth on, but it was not dropping below 75 degrees at night for like over a week. And July 1st happens to be the date that we need our tomatoes blossoms to stay on in order to have tomatoes for the tomato tasting. And so we were like, there's nothing you could do other than pray. But we lost a ton of blossoms, even with the shade cloth up, because it just was so extreme that the plants couldn't handle it. Now, if you didn't have shade cloth on, you would have lost those when it got above 100 degrees. So if it hadn't gotten up that high and stayed that high that long, we wouldn't have had the loss that we had. But it does help 99% of the time. We usually don't have those sustained heats for that long. And the shade cloth is 30%. We have some of it laying over there. You don't want to use 70% or 80%, which is what we use for us humans who want shade cloth. So like that thing that I have on the back of the greenhouse right now is a shade cloth that we use for one of our canopies. And that's an 80% shade. So it's great if you're trying to stay cool, but it's not enough sun for your plants, and it also doesn't give you enough airflow. So the 30%, number one, is a whole lot cheaper, and number two, it helps with the airflow so that it also keeps the temperature down when you're trying to cool it. So, and we get that from Greenhouse Mega Store. And the nice thing is that you buy it by, they have widths and they have lengths. So you say like, I want it, like we buy it 12 feet wide, and then I get to pick how many feet I want. So I'll say I want 25 feet, I want 50 feet, whatever, and they'll cut it, and then I cut it in half. So it's 6 feet wide, and however long I had it, and that's what goes across the pieces here. And then we just take it down at the end of the season. But yeah, if you're not shading the stuff, and that's not just tomatoes, all of your sweet pepper, well, not all of your sweet peppers, all of your bell peppers hate our heat. And we have people all the time that will say, but we grow bell peppers in California. And it's like, yes, on the coast. And so, you know, they like that cooler weather. If you're not shading them for the whole summer, they're not going to produce well. Yeah. Did that answer your question?
Yes.
I went down a bit of rabbit trail with that one.
That's okay. Knowledge is king.
And if you come back for the tomato tasting, you will see all of our shade fabric up.
Does neem oil have a purpose in tomato care?
Yes and no. So
Okay.
first of all, neem oil, you've got to be really careful. You're growing a warm weather crop, and neem oil will burn in heat. So it's great for cold weather crops that you can spray at any time, and it's going to kill the insects, but it's not going to harm the plants when it's in cold weather. It will kill, like, it's really good. It's basically smothering what you're spraying. So it's great for aphids, but there are better things for aphids.
What's better for aphids that's organic?
So for us, the insecticidal soap.
Okay.
And you know, the aphids hide under,
Yeah.
and so there are you can, you know, try to turn your bottle sideways and spray, but then, you know, it doesn't stop spraying. You have to turn it up and spray it. And then there are garden centers will often have the spray bottles that have the thing that goes like this, so that you can just go like that and it sprays it up there. Like for us, once it heats up in the greenhouses, and when we had the 90 degrees just like 3 weeks ago, the aphids start to hit our peppers in the greenhouse. The nice thing is if your plants are in containers and you're trying to do treat for aphids, you can turn the container sideways or upside down and spray it and then flip it back up. But the insecticidal soap is a lot safer as far as not burning your plants, you know, with any heat or anything like that. And you can get it all over you, and it's soap. And it's also really cheap. So I think Safeguard is the company we use, and it's like 1 teaspoon per quart of water. And you buy them in pints, and they last, like the pint of concentrate lasts forever. So for all of our, that's what we use on everything in the garden. Anything that we're eating that gets aphids, we're using insecticidal soap. And then the other thing is sticky traps, the yellow sticky traps.
Yeah.
They're great for aphids, but they're also really important for whiteflies. The aphids can't fly away when you're spraying them. The whiteflies can, and so they're also under the leaf, and you go to spray them and they all just fly away, so you didn't really get them. So the sticky traps, they are attracted to the yellow, and so all it's doing is it's sticking them to the yellow cards. You will see if you're anywhere near where Ratto Brothers is growing the lettuces and stuff, you'll see the yellow tape running through the rows, and it's to get the aphids and the whiteflies to stick to the tape. So there's no chemical on it, it's just sticky. Yeah.
Okay.
So
I have a non-tomato question.
yeah.
I planted some Japanese cucumbers, and along with it came Japanese beetles.
It didn't.
It didn't.
There are no Japanese beetles in California. They may be Hoplia beetles,
Okay.
and they are attracted to light colored flowers.
Okay.
So you'll find them in calla lilies, white roses, and it's only this time of year. They show up, they eat the flower. They're not actually eating the plant.
Okay.
They just eat the flower, and then they'll lay their eggs and they disappear. So they're only here for a short time, and then they're gone the rest of the season. So this time of year, everybody starts, because they kind of look like a Japanese beetle unless you compare the two.
Okay.
And since there have never been Japanese beetles in California, we know that that's not what they are.
Okay.
And the biggest problem is with Japanese beetles, you can kill them with milky spore.
Okay.
The Hoplia beetles will not die with milky spore. So a lot of people will buy the milky spore and try using that to kill them, and the Hoplia beetles are like,
Is there something we can use?
pick them off and put them in soapy water.
Oh, okay.
And you're gonna find them in the flowers.
Okay.
And they'll usually wiggle their way down to the very base of the flowers so that you can't see them. But yeah, just pick them off. I found one on the dog the other day.
Okay.
You know, they're really slow moving. They can fly, but they're like super slow moving. So usually if you find them in the flowers, just pick them off and throw them in soapy water, and they don't have a chance to to go anywhere.
Would the insecticidal soap do anything for them?
Not really,
No. Okay.
Yeah, that's more for soft,
little ones.
soft-bodied insects,
Got it.
and they have a hard exoskeleton,
Yeah, they do.
so
Okay.
yeah, it doesn't really affect them. And that's also the reason it won't work on earwigs. And so for earwigs,
Yeah.
and one of the things I forgot to tell our volunteers, but if you looked at some of the peppers that we had under the tent, it looked like it had mold on top, and it actually wasn't mold. It's Sluggo Plus. And so Sluggo kills snails and slugs. Sluggo Plus also kills earwigs, and it's organic. But as soon as it touches water, it gets fuzzy, and so it looks like you've got mold growing on top of stuff. And the earwigs started chewing on our pepper plants, and they'll hide in the trays, so you can't find them. And then at night they come out, and they will damage all summer long.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you're getting holes in your plants or edges chewed off, it's a good chance that it's earwigs, and they will hide underneath cool areas. So the Sluggo Plus works really good for knocking them down. Beer also works, and soy sauce. Yeah, there's a mixture. If you Google it, there's a mixture of soy sauce and water in a cup, and they're attracted to it. So they get in there, and then they can't get out, and it drowns them. So yeah, I hate earwigs.
So what do you consider your aged manure?
For us, it's about 6 months, and we're just taking it from the back of the pile. It's going to depend on how, number one, what kind of manure it is. Horse manure is not hot generally. Like chicken manure is very hot, and it will burn your plants if you're using it super fresh. Horse manure, like if you catch it coming out and you throw it on your plants, yeah, it's probably going to burn them. But the big thing is that if it's not aged enough, the nutrients aren't available to the plants. So until it composts down and smells like dirt, even if you're putting it in here, that's why, like, this stuff, I could shove plants into those beds and it's not going to burn them because it's aged manure, but the manure isn't broken down to compost enough that the nutrients are available. So yeah, so just whatever has, like Jane, if you're using your horse manure, I would say after 3 months, it's aged enough that it's not going to burn your plants, and probably it would be like 2 weeks, but I would say safely 3 months. But we're basically making the pile, and then he pushes the pile up with the tractor, and we take the aged manure from the back side of the pile and dump it on the other side so that it's just aged. And by the way, if you ever need horse manure, we'll set you up. We've got plenty. So yeah, we've even got sacks that will let you fill up with it. And,
Really?
yeah. The horses keep making it. Yeah, we have lots of feed sacks, and horses poop about 12 times a day. So yeah, we've got lots of it. And it's also going to have hay mixed into it, and goat manure and chicken manure, but the chicken manure is going to be very minimum, since the chickens have the whole front pasture, so they're not spending a whole lot of time in their their little house. So yeah, but no, we would love to give some away. Anything else? Yes.
I was not here for the first part.
Yeah.
Do you use the cages to keep gophers out? Or?
Yes, that's these things right here.
And where'd you get those?
It's Digger's Gopher Guard. You can get them at the nursery. I know Morris Nursery and West Turf Nursery have them. We order them from the company because they're here in California. Like, it takes 2 days to get them in. And like I said, some of mine are probably over 20 years old. All of the ones I'm using right now are at least 10 years old. And as long as you don't ruin them with your shovel when you're digging them out at the end of the season, they will last forever. They don't rust. And the holes are smaller, so the gophers, smaller than chicken wire. But also chicken wire won't last more than a year. And so they can't get through there. And they will go around trying to get to it, but they're interested in the root at the base. They're not interested in the little feeler roots. So the worst part with getting them into your bed, and we had them in one bed there, is they're pushing the dirt away from the roots, trying to get to them, and so then the roots are not getting water right up against them. So I'm constantly going in there and doing this, and then setting my gopher traps to try to trap them. But we have a severe gopher situation out here, so we are fighting them all the time. Dog caught 23 of them the first irrigation. So
Wow.
yeah,
Go,
killed
Maddie,
40
go.
of them the first like 3 weeks we were here.
Wow.
So
Do you recommend a gopher trap?
yes, gopher hawk,
Gopher hawk.
100%. I won't even waste my time with anything
Okay.
other than a gopher hawk. And we have 6 of them, and if I have a gopher that outsmarts my gopher hawk, I will put all 6 traps in the same run, because
Okay.
eventually his guard is going to go down and he'll run into one and I'll catch
Okay.
him. So yeah, gopher hawk is the easiest, safest trap out there.
Great. Thank
Yeah.
you.
And if you guys want any of these, they're here. And for coming and listening to me,
This is so we know what to order.
we are gonna give you guys a free, these are orange hat micros.
Oh, wow.
So they're all, that's about the size they get. They won't
plant.
get, yeah, they won't get any bigger.
Oh. And, and the tomatoes are.
They are an orange cherry tomato, and they get so many. Oh, you can hand that back to me, and I'll
I got
trade you.
these.
There we go.
Well, thank you.
You are welcome. So they're an orange cherry tomato. They're kind of a small cherry tomato. They will set so many tomatoes on them that it looks like flowers. It'll be like solid orange. And so we've actually used them as borders for our flower beds because they're just so pretty. And because they're so tiny, like they need about a gallon size pot or bigger. Like they don't need bigger, but if you had a bigger pot, you could put 2 of them in there. But for one plant, they need about a gallon size for the whole season. And they're just so fun
Oh, cool.
because they're so little.
I think I got one last year.
Yeah.
And they were so little bitty little things, but they were so sweet.
They're very sweet. Yeah, the skin is a little tough, but it's
I know,
like,
huh?
yeah,
Oh,
who
well.
cares? Because the flavor is really good. And they, we get them about that big on them, but ours are also in the ground. So
Yeah, this is great because it doesn't get very big.
Awesome.
It
stay small. And we've gotten into micros. If you go and look, I don't know what's left over there. This one is by far the smallest of all the micros that we've grown. And I've researched, it's also the smallest period. Like
Okay.
there's one called Tiny Tom that sets a red tomato, but all of the reviews on it are that the tomato tastes horrible. So like, well, we've got lots of red tomatoes, why grow that? But we have multiple micro tomatoes that get just a little bit bigger. So they get like this big to that big. The Showstopper is one of them, and loved Showstopper last year when we tested it. There's one called Golden Hour that we've sold out of for the year. Crazy amount of tomatoes that it produces. And then we have one that we tested last year called Eye Candy. And if you go in there and look at them, you're like, that's the tiniest little tomato, but that thing's actually about a month old. It's like only this big right now, but it'll get, it gets about like that big. And Eye Candy and Showstopper are probably the prettiest ones that we've seen so far. And Showstopper is the first one with the blue in it that has like really fantastic flavor, because a lot of the blue, it's anthocyanine. It's the same blue that makes blueberries blue. So it's an antioxidant, keeps the fruit from rotting, so it'll sit on your counter for a long time. But it tends to create blander flavor, the tomatoes that have the blue in them. So there's, if you've ever heard of Bill, I'm blanking on his name right now, Wild Boar Farms. He's the one that introduced the first blue tomato, Blue Beauty, and then it was followed by Black Beauty. He was breeding them, and he got the blue from a wild tomato in Mexico that he found. So he's the one that started all the breeders on breeding for blue. now he's been focusing on flavor because everything that's been created with the anthocyanine in it has a blander flavor to it. And Showstopper is really the first one that you're like, holy smokes, like that is a fantastic tasting tomato. And the other ones taste good. You wouldn't notice they were bland unless you were tasting them next to some of our other tomatoes. But they still taste better than anything you get in the grocery store or any hybrids you buy at Home Depot. But they can't hold up to some of our really fantastic flavor heirlooms. And so now that he's starting to focus on flavor, Showstopper is definitely fantastic. And eye candy was good, but when you tasted it right next to Showstopper, you're like, yeah, that one's good. So, but yeah, so have fun with them, and then when you get totally addicted to micros, try some of the other ones.
Thank you so much.
You guys are welcome.
Wonderful.
Thanks for listening.
Done over there? Yeah.